Well folks, Special Projects returns with pack number 22, of course consolidating two packs, what would have been 5 in October and 5 in November, now into one traditional November pack with a full 10 cars instead. I doubt that I'll do any Special Projects in definitely December, probably January as well, to be honest, because we've got Spec 3, we've got the new DLC, so we're going to mostly be pretty busy, I would imagine, and then we'll see after that point, of course. For now though, I will go ahead and say that for those of you who are long-time fans of Special Projects, you might end up having a couple of these cars as your absolute favourites that I've ever done. Even for me, there was one which stood out above all others. This one shocked me in terms of how much I just absolutely adore driving this car. It's such a good car, this GT1 Corvette. But the car which probably impressed me the most of all of these 10 is the car I would have never expected. That's probably partially why. But to spoil it already, it's coming later in the week, the Nissan Z, the Group 4 concept racing version which I've built. It's one of the best builds I've ever done, and it is superb through corners. It's one of the finest handling cars and one of the finest handling builds I've ever experienced in Gran Turismo 7. Not to toot my own flute, of course, but if you're looking forward to it, you're going to enjoy that one. And if, like me, you're maybe not enjoying it, or if, like me, I should say, you're not looking forward to it, you're definitely going to enjoy it. Now, for this one, this is of course a legendary Corvette. It was Doug Rippie Motorsports. It was Chevy approved. Le Mans and those involved at Le Mans were over the moon to see a Corvette in the GT1 category at the time. It did unfortunately have an engine failure with only 2 hours left in the 24-hour race, which is such a shame. But what a beast of a car. As far as I could find online, you're looking at 525 or so horses, about 1,100 kilos. Those could be wrong, because, of course, one website will say one thing, one will say another, but that's at least what I could find, so you could change that if you want to. Unfortunately, we cannot quite make it light enough to match 1,100, but 1,163 isn't too far off. And as far as the horsepower, as you can see, I'm running 530 instead of 525, partially just to give it that extra 5 horses to make up for the extra weight. Of course, 5 horsepower versus 60 kilos doesn't quite equate, but you know what I'm getting at. And also, I didn't want to have to restrict the engine unnecessarily, just for the sake of 5 horsepower. So I'll leave it down to you as far as how much of a stickler you want to be, but it is a shame when you can't quite get there in terms of the weight. Now, as far as the parts, of course you want your stage 1 weight. It has the comfort softs as standard. For the Club Sports section, if we go to the Ultimate section first, you can see, or you can see even, of course, the High Lift Cams S, which of course cancels out the lower version anyway. You do also, while we're here, want the titanium rods and pistons. Jumping back to the Club Sports section, you want your stage 2 weight, the power restrictor and the ballast. As far as the semi-racing stuff, the ECU, the racing crank, not too surprisingly, the diff, the increase of body rigidity, seems appropriate to a race car. Stage 3 weight, of course. As far as the racing stuff, we've got the polished ports, the racing air filter, silencer, manifold, pads, and I've gone for the drilled discs. As far as the suspension, transmission, and the clutch and flywheel, pretty obviously we've gone for the racing spec. And again, fairly obviously for a GT1 car, racing tyres. As usual, when I do a racing build, I've gone for racing hards, so it's not too crazy on points. And as you can see, 711, well, that's not too bad. If you did want to use it maybe in some 700-point events, it's not really that much of a change if you wanted to do that. Especially if you can use lower tyres. I mean, put it on some sports tyres, you're well away. You can easily get in there then. And then as far as the ultimate stuff, of course, we already checked that. So it's fairly simple. As far as turning a really good sports car into a full-on GT1 race car, it's not as crazy as you'd think in terms of parts to fit. It's not like a 1,000 horsepower Trans Am monster kind of evolution race car, crazy, whatever. It's actually quite modest. 525 horses in real life, if, again, that's accurate. That's not that insane, really. Now, as far as the actual build, we've got the racing hards fitted, of course, for the suspension, 95mm, so super low on the suspension, 6 on anti-roll, 40 on the compression for the dampers, so the maximum, so it's very, very stiff. It's a race car at the end of the day. 45 for the expansion. 2.95 for the spring, so also fairly high there. 3 degrees of camber. As far as the toe, we towed out 0.5 on the front and towed in 0.20 on the rear. As far as the diff, 10, 30 and 10. For the transmission, it's not overly long. It will do up around 190, 200-ish miles an hour, which is probably about accurate, I would imagine, to real life, depending on the aero settings. So 320 kilometers an hour, which is up around 205 anyway. The power restrictor and the ballast, of course, are untouched. As far as the downforce, I am running a high downforce, so essentially a grip build. You'll see it on Le Mans in a second, and incidentally, even with the high aero, it's still doing up around nearly 200. So not bad at all for a car of its type, certainly at the 700 point level. And then for the rest of the stuff over here, well, you can see what we've already done. So all that remains, as I alluded to, is to jump out, of course, to Le Mans. Where else could you possibly take such an iconic GT1 car? And show you, of course, what the car can do in practice. Now, my notes on this particular car are, for one thing, I would succinctly describe it as a lovable beast. It's got the sound, the look, it kind of has that vicious aura to it, but it's a surprisingly forgiving car. Kind of like many of the Viper builds which I've done in the past, cars which you would think would be really, really leery to drive actually end up being quite forgiving. And this is a very easy car to drive. I think partially, to be honest, because it doesn't have a ridiculous amount of power. 530 horses really isn't that crazy. Certainly when you've got all the racing spec stuff, a huge amount of downforce, really, really intensive settings compared to the softer, more road car approach. There's a hint of understeer there. Of course, you do have to be careful on corner entry that you are positioned correctly. But if you want that kind of, raw, older school experience of 90s GT1, and if you are a Corvette fan, certainly if you're specifically a fan of the GT1 Corvette, as I'm sure many Corvette fans are, I think you're going to really, really enjoy this one. It's a pleasure to drive. You can do sub 4-minute laps quite comfortably, even with the high downforce setting and reduced top speed. Not bad at all, I would say, for a car that is barely over 700 points. Of course, kicking off the week strong with the GT1 car. Stick around later today for the Viper GT2, speaking of high-end, high-performance American cars, and of course the other, 9 vehicles, including that Viper, in addition to this, as we move through the week. So, I hope you enjoy this build. I'll see you later on with more, and thanks for watching.